Let the journey of discovery begin. A strange new creature emerges. In one of the hottest regions on Earth, scientists have just discovered an animal never before seen. It is a new species of arthropod, a crustacean similar to a shrimp, but it lives amid the scorching heat of Iran's Lut Desert, a place where life is thought to be impossible. Dr. Hussein Raj described the discovery of this organism in such an extreme environment as nothing short of extraordinary. The find took place during an ecological survey meant to study the biodiversity of the Lut Desert. When the researchers first spotted the tiny creatures swimming through the suffocating heat, they could hardly believe their eyes. This crustacean was found in a seasonal lake, a rare oasis in the heart of the desert. What makes it remarkable is that the lake itself does not exist year-round. It dries up completely during droughts and only returns when the rains arrive. Yet, these little shrimp have evolved to survive in such harsh conditions. They are capable of lying dormant in the dry sediment for decades, waiting to be revived by the return of water. It's a miraculous testament to nature's extraordinary power of survival. If modern scientists could invent a hangover cure, it would likely become the most popular discovery of the 21st century. Yet archaeologists believe that such a remedy has existed for 4,000 years, created by the ancient Egyptians themselves. There is no reason to doubt that the people who built the pyramids wouldn't have found a way to save themselves after a night of drinking. A fragment of ancient papyrus written in Greek, but discovered in Egypt, was recently decoded and revealed the secret to overcoming a hangover. Strangely, this remedy has nothing to do with any medicine people reach for today. According to the ancient text, Egyptians would thread the leaves of the Alexandrian Shamadafni plant into a garland and wear it around their neck to ward off the headache caused by alcohol. The leaf garland was like a garlic charm against vampires, but designed for the intoxicated. Did it really work? Scientists aren't sure. In fact, they don't know anything about this plant's effectiveness for migraines or hangovers. This papyrus belongs to a collection of over 500,000 documents unearthed at the town of Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, collected by Bernard Grenfell and Arthur Hunt over a century ago. Deciphering this massive trove has taken decades, if not centuries. Among the remaining texts, there are remedies for hemorrhoids, toothaches, stomach ulcers, and even instructions for eye surgery. The ancient Egyptians seem to have held medical secrets far ahead of their time. High in the green mountains of Oman, more than 100 miles from the coast of Muscat, there is a village perched on a cliff so steep that it's almost invisible from below. For 5 centuries, a small tribe has lived here in isolation, cut off from the outside world. To reach the village, travelers must navigate winding roads until the asphalt disappears, and then continue on foot or on the back of a mule. After many miles climbing through deep canyons and twisting valleys, Al-Arak finally comes into view, a village seemingly forgotten by time. Until 2005, foreigners were completely forbidden from entering, as the area was once home to an Omani military presence. Electricity only arrived in Al-Arak in 2010. Before that, life here was almost unchanged from the days of their ancestors 1,000 years ago. There's no school in the village. Most residents learned to read and write at home. Not until the 1970s did a school open several miles away, offering formal education for the first time, but children had to walk more than 6 miles round trip to attend. Today, only 5 families, about 25 people, remain in Al-Arak. The village cannot expand, nor can it shrink. It must stay as it is to survive. According to Salim al-Shariki, who was born in these stone houses, their ancestors arrived from Jordan more than 1,000 years ago. Every resident of Al-Arak is descended from a single ancestor who came to Oman in the Middle Ages. The first settlers carved homes into the mountains using simple stone tools like chisels, mixing water with rock to create clay for construction. With nothing but stone and water, they built a peaceful haven suspended in the sky. Across the centuries, This village has endured, a testament to human resilience and ancient technique. Amid the modern world, Alarak has preserved its purity, hidden high in the mountains, as if to remind us of the values that have been lost to time. Japan is renowned for its unique culture, beautiful nature, and rich history. Yet mummies are not what most people think of when they hear about the land of the rising sun. The climate here isn't ideal for preserving bodies. There are no arid deserts, acidic bogs, or snow-capped peaks year-round. Even so, that didn't stop a small group of Buddhist monks known as Sakushinbutsu from undertaking a strange journey of sacrifice, turning themselves into living mummies. Between 1081 and 1903, at least 17 monks underwent this ritual in Yamagata, a remote region in northern Japan. The actual number may be higher, but only that many bodies have been discovered and verified. The first to embark on this path was the monk Shine. In 1081, he began the process of self-mummification, believing that after his death, once his body became a mummy, he would be reborn in the future to continue spreading good deeds. But his plan was unsuccessful. After Shine, other monks continued to experiment, gradually perfecting this sacred ritual. The self-mummification process lasted 3 years, beginning with a strict diet. For 1,000 days, the monks ate only what could be foraged from the mountain's roots, pine bark, and herbs, causing their bodies to wither to little more than skin and bone. Then they began drinking a toxic sap from the lacquer tree, a substance usually used to make lacquerware, with the aim of preventing internal organs from decomposing after death. When a monk sensed that his final moment was near, he would be placed in an underground tomb, seated in the lotus position. Each day he would chant sutras and ring a bell, a small sound that let his disciples know he was still alive. And when the bell finally fell silent, everyone believed he had entered eternal meditation. The body would remain underground for 3 years and 3 months until it had completely hardened. If there were no signs of decay, that body would be considered a true Sakushin Butsu and revered as a living saint. The last person to perform this ritual did so in 1903, even though by then the practice was considered barbaric and inhumane by law. His body was not discovered until 1961 by a research team from Tohoku University. Today, the remains are still preserved and displayed in neighboring Niigata Prefecture as a vivid testament to absolute faith and devotion. One of America's top antiquities experts made the worst mistake of his career, right on live television. The vase was actually made by a high school student named Betsy Soul during an art class at Churchill School in Eugene, Oregon back in the 1970s. For reasons unknown, the vase survived for decades and was somehow mistaken for a rare piece of folk art. After the episode aired, a correction was issued stating that the vase had no historical value at all. It was Betsy Soul herself, now an adult, who saw the show and recognized her teenage creation. Strangely enough, Fletcher wasn't the only one fooled. Several other experts had also believed it was an important artifact. The incident shows just how difficult it can be to identify the true origin of a strange object, especially when it looks like it came straight out of a museum. As for the person who brought the vase to the show, they didn't get $50,000, but they do have an unforgettable story to tell for the rest of their life. In the harsh deserts between Israel and Jordan, archaeologists have just revealed a surprising discovery. They uncovered cotton and silk fabrics dating back 1,300 years, evidence of a once great trade route that crossed this barren land, the Silk Road. The Silk Road was a legendary network of commerce stretching from the farthest reaches of China all the way to the gates of Rome. Caravans of merchants braved deadly deserts carrying precious good spices, gemstones, and above all, silk, a commodity that made them wealthy across the Silk Road's 1,500-year history. Even after the fall of the Roman Empire, while Europe was ravaged by plague and Mongol armies swept through the continent, the Silk Road continued to operate, connecting civilizations. In the Arava Desert, remnants of 7th century fabric have been found. These pieces display patterns identical to the wall paintings of the 6th century Ajanta caves in India, pointing to their origin on the subcontinent. These silk and cotton textiles were likely on their way from India to ancient Nubia, south of Egypt, only to be abandoned in the desert for reasons unknown, lost for thousands of years. Amid the dry, swirling sands, those fragile scraps remain, a reminder that the desert does not just bury life. It preserves the memory of the roads that once linked the world. In the wild Altai Mountains of Russia, 2 colossal stone blocks have just been discovered. Their shapes are so unusual, they have left scientists baffled. According to archaeologist Ruslan Pyarchov, these stone monuments seem to be carved into the forms of dragons and bird-headed lions, mythical creatures that haunted the imagination of ancient cultures. The find became even more sensational when Pyarchov estimated their age at about 12,000 years, dating back to the end of the Ice Age. Each block weighs up to 120 tons, far beyond the carrying capacity of the ancient Egyptians who built the pyramids. How could prehistoric people, in such icy conditions, move and carve stone of this size? Some argue they are simply the result of natural forces. However, Pyarchov insists that the patterns on the rocks are signs of artificial workmanship, resembling reptilian skin or the scales of dinosaurs. The bird-headed lion statue in particular fits perfectly within the local cultural context. 3,000 years ago, the Scythians of the Eurasian steppe revered the griffin, making it a symbol for over a millennium. Could a giant monstrous bird have really existed 12,000 years ago? If so, it would explain why these legends endured, and why a giant head of such a creature was carved into the granite. Even so, Pyarchov's findings have yet to be verified by other scientists or published in any respected journal. He himself admits he has no idea which civilization created these statues, what purpose they served, or how such massive stones could have been moved without advanced technology. These stone figures are not Siberia's only mysteries. Not far away at Goraya Shoria, another enormous megalithic wall has been discovered, its stones far too large for any ancient human to have moved. Is this evidence of a lost civilization or traces of a technology modern humans have never known? These riddles remain unsolved, just as those ancient stones continue to stand against the icy winds of Siberia. In the heart of Amsterdam, on a modest beach along the Dutch coast where white sands stretch less than a mile, a woman named Willy van Wingerden began a strange journey in 2013. That year, she stumbled upon a fossilized woolly mammoth tooth. From that moment, the world of the past seemed to open before her, revealing more than 500 other artifacts from the sands. She found Neanderthal tools, bone fishhooks, and even ancient human remains hidden for thousands of years beneath the earth. Nearly every day, 5 times a week, she returns to her familiar beach. And each time she finds something new, it seems an endless prehistoric treasure trove. But the truth is even more remarkable. This narrow beach was actually created by a massive coastal engineering project. The sand here did not come from land, but was dredged from the deep sea, once part of a sunken world. The original goal was to widen the beach and protect against rising seas. But as millions of tons of sand were sprayed onto the shore, they brought with them remnants from the Stone Age evidence that had been buried far beneath the cold sea. Ancient cemeteries, once intact, have now been dredged up and scattered across the new beach. A world long buried can now be pieced together, artifact by artifact, like an ancient puzzle. Thousands of years ago, sea levels here were much lower than today. What is now salt marsh once served as settlement and farmland for prehistoric peoples. An ancient land called Doggerland once connected Amsterdam to Scotland and southern Norway. For years, fishermen pulled up the occasional bone or stone tool, but stormy seas made archaeological study impossible. Now, thanks to the reclamation project, the past has been laid bare, waiting for human hands to uncover its memories. A vast trove from our lost ancestors coming to light. Archaeologist Luke Amroitz is delighted that beachcombers like Willie frequently send him photos of new finds. The past, once thought lost forever, is now coming back to life on Dutch sands. And in another corner of Amsterdam, a rusting iron hull lies quietly in the water. A former Soviet submarine Foxtrot B-80, built in the 1950s, now drifting like a ghost from the Cold War era. More than a decade ago, it was abandoned in the city harbor with no caretaker or protection. Recently, urban explorer Bob Thyssen discovered and documented the interior, a world frozen for over half a century. Bob rode a rubber dinghy up to the submarine and climbed aboard as if entering a portal through time. What he found was a perfectly preserved Soviet time capsule, a missile compartment adorned with bright red stars on launch tubes, pin-up drawings on the walls, and hundreds of clocks, pipes, switches, and technical equipment, all bearing the marks of the 1950s and Russian inscriptions. The submarine, once a point of pride for the Soviet Navy when it joined the fleet in 1956, has been strangely forgotten. After a Turkish owner brought it to Amsterdam for private parties, it was abandoned around 2005. Since then, it has changed hands, but no one has been willing to pay the massive towing fees to move it elsewhere. And so it sits, quietly rusting in the city's waters, a silent witness to a bygone era. The Amsterdam authorities are now seeking a way to remove the vessel from the inner harbor before it decays completely and becomes an environmental hazard. Until then, it remains a remarkable time capsule, a floating steel tomb echoing the whispers of the Cold War and the fading empires of the past. In the wilds of Armenia, on a remote plateau overlooking the swift river that now forms the border with Turkey, the ancient ruins of the city of Ani stand out like a scar across time. No town lies nearby. The surrounding mountains and valleys remain almost entirely untouched by humans. This is one of the last places on Earth that retains complete natural purity. And it is precisely this that makes Ani so haunting. In winter, the entire site is blanketed in snow, creating a silent, frozen fairy tale landscape. In that cold mist, you can still make out a massive cathedral, 6 smaller ruined churches, and fields of shattered stone that once formed the walls of ancient buildings. Ani was once the capital of the Armenian kingdom in the 10th century, controlling a prosperous stretch of the Silk Road. But in 1319, the Mongol horde swept through, plundering the city, and it was later flattened by a devastating earthquake. The population fled, and the few who remained were absorbed into the Ottoman Empire in 1579. By 1735, Ani was completely abandoned. Today, this ghost city lies quietly in nature, buried in ice as winter comes, as if time itself has never passed through this place. About 3,000 years ago, someone passed through the Jotunheimen Mountains in Norway and dropped a shoe. They probably never thought they'd get it back, and in fact, they never did. But archaeologists have found it 3 millennia later, still intact, frozen on the high, icy plateau. The shoe was discovered in 2007, almost unchanged since the day it was left behind. But it is only one of hundreds of strange finds emerging from the melting ice in Norway. Around 4,000 years ago, a red-winged bird died in the mountains and was buried beneath thick snow. When it resurfaced recently, scientists found its internal organs perfectly preserved. Each layer of melting ice has revealed new wonders. Prehistoric animal remains, ancient human tools, and even horse hoof prints pressed into the permafrost. According to Birgit Skar, a professor at the NTNU University Museum, every year brings astonishing new discoveries. Based on satellite images from 2020, nearly 40% of the area's ice has melted, exposing history from the Viking Age and even before. So far, the oldest artifact ever found here is 6,100 years old, a broken arrow shaft discovered in the same spot as the shoe. It belonged to ancient people who once lived under some of the harshest conditions on Earth. Deep in the dense forests of eastern Estonia, a young boy was out exploring when he stumbled upon something strange. Silent bubbles rising from a nearby lake and from the water's surface, a hard gray shape poking through the mud. He ran to fetch his father, and soon a group of local men gathered at the water's edge, pulling together to drag out something no one could have expected. A massive T-34 tank, once a fearsome symbol of World War II. The tank was hauled from the depths of the swamp like a monster awakened from the earth, caked in thick mud, but astonishingly intact. Weighing nearly 30 tons, its appearance shocked many. It looked as though it might roll again, with just a tank of fuel. According to War History Online, this could have been one of the tanks abandoned by German troops as they retreated from Eastern Europe in the final stages of the war. Or perhaps it became mired during a brutal battle and was simply forgotten among the deep woods. Though it started out as a Soviet main battle tank, this T-34 bore numerous Nazi markings, evidence that it had been captured, repainted, and turned back against its former owners in the chaos of battle. In the 1940s, the T-34 stood out as both efficient and easy to produce. With over 80,000 assembled throughout the war, the Soviets could quickly replace their losses as the front line shifted. The tank was found not far from the site of a bloody clash in September 1944, where nearly 100,000 soldiers lost their lives in Estonia's forests and swamps. It's very likely this vehicle fought in that battle, roaring, charging forward, and then sinking silently, buried beneath the cold earth for almost 80 years. After being pulled from the swamp, the T-34 was transported to the local war museum in Gorodenko, where it was restored as a living relic of war, a massive steel artifact that once thundered across battlefields, now resting quietly to tell its story to future generations. In 2022, a young gold miner working in northern Canada's Eureka Creek had a chance encounter with history. While working in the permafrost, his equipment struck something solid. When he stepped down to investigate, he was met with the lifeless gaze of a baby mammoth, frozen for 35,000 years. The body was almost perfectly preserved. According to paleontologist Grant Zazula, this is the most spectacular Ice Age discovery ever recorded. The tiny mammoth still retained its skin, hair, trunk, tail, and even its delicate baby ears. Amazingly, its flexible trunk, the part it used to pluck grass, was also completely intact. Scientists could hardly believe the mummy's condition. They declared that not even the ancient Egyptians could have done better. Some officials called it the most significant paleontological find ever made in North America. At the time of death, this mammoth was only just over a month old. The cause of death remains uncertain. However, a small piece of grass found in its stomach suggests its final moment was spent grazing in the wild. No one knows if it was killed by a cave lion, ancient bison, or a wild horse gone berserk. What is certain is this: it was buried in ice almost immediately after it fell, and its body has never decayed since. There is a man named Mark Sinnett who has made bold claims about China and the summit of Everest. Mark is a seasoned mountaineer, and what he says relates directly to two British explorers, George Mallory and Andrew Irvine. In 1924, Mallory and Irvine attempted a daring climb up Everest's north face. They vanished during the ascent and were never seen again. It wasn't until 1999 that Mallory's body was found about 600 meters from the summit, frozen solid beneath the icy snow. But the chilling part is this: Andrew Irvine's body has never been found, and the camera they carried is also missing. That camera could hold the key to the greatest mystery in mountaineering. Did the two men actually reach the summit of Everest? They might have stopped just 1,000 feet short and died in the snow, or they may have succeeded and perished on the way down. No one can say, but if the film still exists, it could reveal everything. Mark Sinnett claims that Irvine's body was in fact discovered by Chinese climbers and then disposed of. He also believes the film was destroyed to keep the secret. It sounds incredible, but Mark says his source comes directly from the China-Tibet Mountaineering Association. If his claims are true, then George Mallory and Andrew Irvine would be the first people to have set foot on Everest as summit 29 years before Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. They would also have conquered the north face of Everest, long before the Chinese team claimed the achievement in 1960. On a remote beach in Quebec, Canada, wind sweeps across the cold sands where human bones have slept undisturbed for nearly 2 centuries. In a discovery tinged with sorrow, scientists from the University of Montreal confirmed the existence of 21 skeletons scattered across the shore, and in a nearby mass grave not far from the water. These ancient bones belong to Irish migrants, people who left behind famine and hardship in search of life in the New World, only to perish at sea. They were passengers on the ill-fated Carracks of Whitehaven, a ship that left Ireland in 1847 during the country's Great Famine. As the potato blight ravaged the land, hundreds of thousands fled in desperation. The Carrack was bound for Quebec, carrying 132 people, hoping for a new beginning. But fate was not on their side. During the Atlantic crossing, disaster struck and the ship went down in icy waters. All aboard perished. Decades later, a great storm caused bones to emerge from the earth, washed up by sand and waves, allowing archaeologists to uncover a mass grave hidden on the beach. Scientific analysis of the bones revealed unmistakable evidence of severe malnutrition. Their bodies were already weakened before boarding the ship, a direct consequence of the famine that devastated Ireland in the 1840s. This great migration was not a journey of hope, but a gamble for survival at sea. Diane Lauthier, the local representative, said the discovery serves as a stark reminder of the dangers faced by those who tried to escape catastrophe. They did not find a promised land, only a final resting place on a cold, foreign shore. After research was completed, the remains were reinterred on the same beach in the very spot where fate brought them at last. Amid the wind and salty sand, these nameless souls now have a story to be told, a quiet elegy of resilience, suffering, and broken hope on a misty ocean. In Italy, archaeologists have just unearthed a skeleton that may be rare proof of one of history's most notorious methods of execution, the breaking wheel. The remains were found alongside 2 iron shackles, showing that the victim had been tightly bound at the time of death. The excavation took place beneath San Ambrosio Square in Milan, where scientists found 56 other skeletons dating from the Roman era to the 16th century. At first, they thought this young man died in battle, but the sheer number of injuries and fractures told a much darker story. It seems he suffered one of the most agonizing punishments ever devised by humankind. In the Middle Ages, death by torture was not uncommon. Torture was accepted as legal punishment throughout Europe. Yet the key difference between legend and archaeological proof is this: the cold facts left in the bones. Researchers detailed this case in the Journal of Archaeological Science, providing clear images of the wounds and shattered bones. Based on the evidence, they concluded the young man, about 18 years old, died by breaking wheel, a barbaric sentence rarely documented so directly in archaeology. In those dark times, no one was truly safe. The breaking wheel was often used for those accused of spreading plague. Perhaps this young man was accused by a mob. He had protruding teeth and was about 10 centimeters shorter than his peers. Perhaps that made him an easy target for bullying and condemnation. The researchers wrote, "This is the first clear description of the remains of a breaking wheel victim and highlights the importance of archaeology and anthropology in reconstructing past human rights abuses." Buried deep beneath the earth, these bones tell not only of a tragic death, but also of an era when cruelty was sanctioned and fear became a death sentence for the weak. Inside NASA's control room, the atmosphere was tense. Scientists stared at their monitors, tracking an unidentified object hurtling toward Earth. Was it a bird, a plane, or a UFO? Wait, could it actually be ours? In 2004, newspapers ran headlines like Alien Invasion when reports emerged of a flying saucer crashing in Utah's desert. But the truth was far less mysterious. The object was the Genesis spacecraft, a NASA mission launched in 2001 to collect solar wind particles and bring them back to Earth. For 2 years, Genesis floated at the Lagrange point 1, using collector panels made of sapphire, silicon, and gold to trap solar dust. In September 2004, the sample return capsule re-entered the atmosphere. The plan was to deploy a parachute mid-descent, so a helicopter could catch the capsule in midair, a maneuver straight out of a James Bond movie. But something went wrong. A set of tiny sensors had been installed backward, preventing the parachute from deploying. With no braking system, the capsule plummeted into the Utah desert at 310 kilometers per hour. To those watching, it looked exactly like a UFO crash. Although the samples were contaminated by dust and sand, NASA managed to recover enough material to make breakthrough discoveries about the composition of the sun, raising new questions about the formation of the solar system. The mission was not a failure. It was simply a catastrophic landing with a successful result. Did ancient civilizations possess nuclear power? It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but discoveries of desert glass and scorched ruins raise new questions about humanity's distant past. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, once shocked his students when asked if the 1945 Trinity test in New Mexico was truly the first nuclear explosion. He replied, "Yes, in modern times." That answer led many to think of passages in the Indian epic Mahabharata, which describe weapons powerful enough to destroy the world. Was Oppenheimer hinting at something more? In 1932, surveyor Patrick Clayton discovered strange yellow-green glass in Egypt's desert. It was nearly 99% pure silica, identical to fused glass produced by modern nuclear explosions. Similar phenomena have been found in the Mojave and Sahara deserts. No impact craters exist, ruling out meteorite strikes. The temperatures required to create this glass exceed 1,800 C, far higher than any natural wildfire. Some scientists believe it was caused by air bursts, like the Tunguska event in Siberia. But that doesn't explain the glass's purity or the recurring patches of Libyan desert glass. Could this have been a testing ground for otherworldly technology? At Mohenjo-Daro, an ancient city in Pakistan, archaeologists found ruins with melted stones, crystallized surfaces, and signs of extreme heat. Skeletons lying face down in the streets contain abnormal levels of radiation. Ancient texts describe flying machines called vimana, rescuing thousands from disaster. Was this site the victim of an ancient nuclear blast? Mohenjo-Daro is not alone. Similar scorched ruins have been found in Scotland, Turkey, India, and Ecuador. How can we explain so many ancient sites showing evidence of heat rivaling modern atomic explosions? The theory of prehistoric nuclear warfare may sound outrageous, but the evidence from desert glass to melted ruins and mysterious texts keeps humanity asking questions. Did ancient civilizations achieve incredible technological heights only to destroy themselves? These mysteries remain buried in the dust, waiting for us to uncover the truth. Amid the brutal years of the American Civil War, a mysterious weapon brought terror beneath the water's surface: the Confederate torpedo. This was a contact mine planted underwater like today's naval mines, drifting quietly beneath the waves and waiting for an unlucky ship. Also called Reed's barrel torpedoes after their inventor, James Gabriel Reed, commander of the Confederate Torpedo Corps. These devices were the brainchild of a gifted innovator. Reed developed a variety of explosives for the Southern Army: underwater torpedoes, landmines, and powerful hand grenades. The torpedoes were anchored to harbor floors or along coastlines with chains and heavy weights. Their appearance resembled wooden barrels or whiskey kegs. Each device was about 1.1 meters long, tapered at both ends like a bullet. Early prototypes were built from repurposed wooden barrels, but they struggled to stay in place underwater, forcing engineers to develop better anchoring systems. Stability wasn't the only challenge. The gunpowder inside could be ruined by water leaks, or the detonators could corrode and render the weapon useless. Despite these flaws, the design remains one of America's earliest military technologies, a testament to wartime ingenuity. Today, no Confederate torpedoes remain in the water, but some artifacts have been preserved and displayed at the National Civil War Naval Museum, a vivid fragment of America's military history. 30 years ago, in the dusty town of Lightning Ridge in Australia's outback, an opal miner named Bob Foster accidentally made history. His family spent day and night digging deep underground in search of the rainbow-colored gemstones that made the region famous. But instead of opal, Foster kept finding dinosaur bones. At first, he simply regarded them as strange pieces and piled them up in his living room like a prehistoric jigsaw puzzle. Curious, he stuffed the bones into 2 suitcases and took a 450-mile train ride to the Australian Museum in Sydney. There, he poured the contents onto curator Alex Ritchie's desk. For Foster, they were just oddities. For Ritchie, they were a treasure, a living opal mine. An excavation team soon visited the area known as Shipyard. In 1984, they made an extraordinary find, the most complete dinosaur skeleton ever discovered in New South Wales. Not only was it complete, but the bones shimmered with opal, as if the ancient remains had crystallized into gemstones. The fossils were displayed at the Australian Museum, captivating visitors for years before Foster donated them to the Australian Opal Centre in Lightning Ridge. For decades, no one studied them in depth until in 2019, scientists finally took a closer look. The results were astounding. The fossils belong to a new dinosaur species named Fostoria dimbangonmo, honoring Foster and Shipyard in the local indigenous language. This was a plant-eating dinosaur with a kangaroo-like stance and A-shaped skull. In life, Fostoria may have been unremarkable, but in death, its opal-coated bones made it a star. The story doesn't end there. Paleontologist Phil Bell, while researching, at first thought all the bones belonged to one individual. But why were there 4 shoulder blades of different sizes? CT scans revealed the truth. They came from 4 individuals, 1 adult and 3 juveniles. This suggests a remarkable behavior. Fostoria likely traveled in herds, possibly for mutual protection. Until then, there was little fossil evidence that Australian dinosaurs lived in groups. These opal-coated dinosaur bones have added a dazzling new chapter to the continent's prehistoric story. In August 2014, something strange happened in the Tunisian desert. On his way home from a wedding, Mehdi Belli suddenly found himself staring at a vast shimmering lake, where just days before, there had been nothing but sand and rock. At first, he thought the desert heat was playing tricks on his mind. But standing on the shore, he realized the impossible was real. Lac Gafsa had appeared out of nowhere. News of the miracle spread quickly. Hundreds of villagers flocked to the lake, calling it Gafsa Beach in heat above 40 C. The cool water seemed like a dream come true. But what caused this lake to form? Some geologists believe seismic activity cracked the bedrock, allowing groundwater to surge to the surface. Others think it's just rainwater collecting in a canyon. Whatever the cause, the lake covers about a hectare and is 10 to 18 meters deep. Yet every miracle has a dark side. The Gafsa area is rich in phosphate, a mineral used for fertilizer and chemical weapons. Mining leaves behind radioactive waste, and geologists warned that the lake's water could be contaminated, carrying a risk of cancer. That wasn't the only danger. Within days, The lake's clear water turned mossy green as algae spread, a sign of stagnant water full of bacteria. Paradise quickly became a place of fear. Despite official warnings, locals still plunged into the water. The lure of cool relief outweighed fears of illness or poisoning. The GAFSA Public Safety Agency repeatedly urged people to stay away until tests could be done, but official results were rarely released. To this day, the origin of Lac GAFSA remains a mystery. Is it a blessing bringing relief in the desert, or a curse hiding danger in radioactive water? Would you dare to dive in and try your luck? A chilling discovery has stunned scientists and travelers alike. A glacier that appears to be bleeding. It was found in the dry valleys, the driest region on the frozen continent. Beneath the barren ice, scientists discovered a network of salty water and strange life forms. It's this primitive life that seems to cause the glacier to ooze a blood-red liquid, creating a scene as unsettling as if a massacre had just taken place. In reality, that red color isn't blood. It's produced by bacteria living beneath the Taylor Glacier, generating a deep crimson fluid that seeps from the ice, enough to send shivers down the spine of anyone who witnesses it. This phenomenon is so well known that the site has been named Blood Falls. While geologists first discovered it nearly a century ago, it's only recently become famous. The origins of Blood Falls date back about 2 million years, when the glacier formed and covered a lake, trapping an entire community of microorganisms beneath the ice. This glacier is like a time capsule, preserving life in an environment with no sunlight, no free oxygen, and almost no heat. Over time, the subglacial lake became rich in salt and iron. As the mineral-laden water seeps out, it brings iron oxide with it, giving Blood Falls its signature red color. Blood Falls is not the scene of a horrific crime, but rather proof of a primordial ecosystem isolated for millions of years, now revealing its secrets as a strange, wondrous fluid of nature. Beneath the sands of Dubai, now sparkling with skyscrapers and luxury, lies a completely different past, one tied to copper, iron, and daring seafaring journeys. Long before Dubai became a symbol of wealth, it was at the heart of ancient civilizations where people learned to harness a harsh environment to thrive. More than 5,000 years ago, in the Hayar Mountains east of modern Dubai, the first inhabitants discovered copper, a breakthrough that changed history. Smelting copper and tin created bronze, a metal that revolutionized tools, weapons, and agriculture. This region became Megan, the main supplier of bronze to ancient Sumerian cities like Ur and Uruk. Back then, Dubai wasn't a tourist destination, but the foundation for a booming industry. At Hilai, near today's Al Ain, archaeologists unearthed a 4,700-year-old circular tomb with engravings of oryxes above the entrance. The intricate stonework is often compared to Machu Picchu's walls, even though Hilai predates it by millennia. About 2,000 years later, iron replaced bronze as the dominant material. The city of Millennia on the desert edge rose as an iron-working hub around the time of Jesus. Millennia had strong iron foundries producing weapons. Coins and goods traded as far as Mesopotamia. But like many ancient cities, it was eventually abandoned, swallowed by the desert sands. To the north, the port city of Jolfur flourished for over 1,000 years, linking the Arabian Gulf to India and China. From the 10th to the 14th century, Jolfur's merchants embarked on sea voyages lasting up to 18 months, becoming true masters of the oceans. Legend says Jolfur was home to Ahmed ibn Majid, the famous navigator, and perhaps even the legendary Sinbad. But the city declined under Portuguese and Persian invasions, finally abandoned in the 18th century. Today, sites like Maya and Jolfur are still being excavated, with each artifact piecing together the story of a glorious past. Modern Dubai is only a thin shell. Beneath the desert, ancient secrets still await discovery. In Cambodia's Kampong Cham province, divers have uncovered a silent warship resting at the bottom of the Mekong River. Where it sank, during the bloody Civil War of the 1970s. Recovery team was initially sent to retrieve and neutralize unexploded ordnance. But during their survey, they unexpectedly found the remains of a soldier, likely still at his post when the ship went down. According to the team, he may have been standing guard when the vessel suffered its final attack. Beside the skeleton, they found a dog tag, revealing his identity, Chin Changle. The government then called for his relatives to come claim his remains for a proper burial. As for the ship, divers discovered a huge cache of unexploded ammunition, 60mm mortar shells, 105mm artillery rounds, and nearly 55,000 pistol and machine gun cartridges, all from just a single hold. It was clearly a heavy weapons supply ship, supporting the war effort between 1970 and 1975. Loaded with ammunition and the blood of its crew, the vessel exploded and sank to the riverbed in late 1973 or early 1974. For decades, it lay quietly in the murky waters, holding its tragic story until it was finally found and its tale brought to light. Few execution devices in history are as brutal and terrifying as the Iron Maiden. Its infamy even inspired a famous band to take its name. The origins of the Iron Maiden trace back to a medieval device called the shame coat or shame barrel. On the outside, it looked like a simple iron cabinet with a hinged door, but inside was pure horror. Countless spikes waiting to impale anyone locked within. In 1793, a German archaeologist recorded what is said to be the first use of the Iron Maiden. According to documents, this happened on August 14, 1515, when a counterfeiter was forced into a spiked coffin, where the blade slowly pierced his body. However, many historians believe the tale is pure fiction. They argue that the Iron Maiden was never actually used for execution. It may have been invented to inspire terror rather than deliver death. While similar devices existed across Europe, there is no evidence they were ever commonly used. The most infamous artifact, the Nuremberg Iron Maiden, was made in the early 19th century, but was destroyed in Allied bombings during World War II. Even with this famous example, there is no real proof it ever killed anyone. In fact, nowhere in the world is there solid evidence that the Iron Maiden was used for execution. It stands as a symbol of cruelty, but may be more a ghost of fear than a true instrument of death. In 2020, while searching for lost fishing nets in the Baltic Sea, a team of German divers stumbled upon something astonishing. A rare piece of history covered in algae, yet still bearing keys, rotors, and the dangerous secrets it once held. It was an Enigma cipher machine, the device Nazi Germany used during World War II to send critical encrypted messages. The divers never expected to encounter such a priceless military relic, and the discovery was pure chance. According to Live Science, Enigma worked by substituting each letter typed for another random letter, creating gibberish messages that only another Enigma, set up exactly the same way, could decode. The machine found had 3 rotors inside, suggesting it once belonged to a warship. Unlike submarines, which used more complex 4-rotor Enigmas, this simpler model still played a vital role in keeping military secrets. Historian Jan Wilch from the German Naval Association explained that at the war's end, the German Navy scuttled many warships and submarines to keep them out of Allied hands. As a result, many Enigma machines have lain on the seafloor for decades, just like the one just discovered. Now, it is no longer buried in the cold sea. The Enigma machine has been restored and delivered to the Archaeological Museum in Schleswig-Holstein, where it will be displayed, telling the story of one of the most mysterious encryption devices in the history of warfare. Beneath the murky layers of peat in Russia's Shimmer marshes, at the foot of the Ural Mountains, a wooden statue nearly 5.3 meters tall lay undisturbed for millennia. Discovered in 1890, this enigmatic figure, known as the Shagir idol, is both mysterious and primal, carved with geometric patterns and multiple human faces. each bearing an unreadable expression. Yet it wasn't until the 21st century that humanity began to understand its true age, a discovery that would radically reshape our view of prehistoric civilization. In a 2018 study, scientists believe the statue dated to about 11,500 years ago, based on radiocarbon samples, ranging from 12,500 to 8,600 years old. But when a new team took another look at this strange artifact, they found an overlooked detail. For more than 120 years of exhibition and preservation, the idol had been repaired with beeswax and wood stains, even as recently as the 1990s. These modern materials may have skewed the carbon results, making the statue appear younger than it really was. The research team returned to the original samples, this time choosing wood, from the deepest core of the statue, untouched by modern substances. The results showed this wood to be roughly 12,250 years old. But to pinpoint when the statue was actually carved, they had to consider something else. The idol was made from the heartwood of a tree, and this central wood had died centuries before the tree was felled. Based on tree ring analysis and wood decay rates, scientists estimated the tree was cut about 150 years after the heartwood stopped growing. Using that data, they calculated the statue was likely created around 10,100 BCE, more than 12,000 years ago. Astonishingly, the carvings on the idol matched the artistic style of the late Paleolithic and early Mesolithic periods, comparable to other ancient artifacts dating to roughly 12,100 years ago. The faceless visages, the mysterious geometric symbols, all seem to whisper of a symbolic mindset and belief system far older than anyone imagined. The Shigir idol is not only the oldest wooden artifact ever discovered, but also a living memory from an age when humans still hunted and survived in the ice. It's a message carved in wood, rising from the earth to remind us that imagination and art have traveled with us since the dawn of time. Everyone's heard of Petra, the stunning rock-carved city in Jordan. But few know there is another place just as spectacular, hidden deep in the deserts of Saudi Arabia. This is Hegra, the lesser-known but no less magnificent sister city, a testament to the ingenuity of the Nabatean civilization. So well concealed, Hegra's secrets lingered for centuries. In the 19th century, British explorer Charles Montagu Doughty set out for Saudi Arabia to find Hegra. Shortly after Petra was rediscovered in 1812, he heard rumors of a similar site somewhere in the desert and was determined to be the first to find it. For years, he wandered through brutal seas of sand, only to discover Hegra's ruins by chance in 1876 when traveling with a local caravan. The site's true scale, however, wasn't revealed until 30 years later when official excavations began. For over a century, researchers largely ignored the city, perhaps because of its remote, forbidding location. Hegra lay buried and abandoned under desert sands for more than 2,000 years. It's a curious thing. The world is full of sarcophagi carved with the image of Hercules, yet not a single bone said to be his has ever been found. Among them, one coffin sent shockwaves through Spain in the 19th century, not only for its ancient appearance, but for what it seemed to suggest about connections between Spain and the ancient Phoenician world. In March 1850, laborers quarrying stone in Tarragona stumbled upon a marble sarcophagus. It was carved with a series of strange images and symbols. At the time, amid the dust and noise of a 19th century work site, no one thought to preserve this piece of history. The coffin was smashed, broken into many pieces. Only one person truly cared. A local antiquities collector named Dawn gathered up the fragments and kept them at home. In one piece of stone, he recognized the image of Hercules performing one of his 12 labors, the creation of the Strait of Gibraltar. Even more fascinating were the figures standing beside Hercules. The scene depicted a group of people migrating from a land of crocodiles and palm trees crossing the strait to the Iberian Peninsula. Later scholars suggested this might show ancient Egyptians traveling across North Africa through Morocco and into Spain. If true, it could mean modern Spaniards carry ancient Egyptian blood. But the story doesn't end there. Some ancient historians claimed that Hercules himself led an army into Iberia, and after his death was buried in Cadiz. Was Hercules in fact an Egyptian or Phoenician general? Digging through the mists of history, during Egypt's 15th dynasty, a mysterious group called the Hyksos seized control. No one knows where they came from or how they defeated the Egyptians. Only that centuries later, they were expelled. Some legends say the Hyksos fled to Spain, chased by Egyptians who settled there to watch or destroy their old enemies. Whether the legend of Hercules or the Hyksos is true, Egyptian history is deeply woven into Spanish culture. When the sarcophagus was discovered in 1850, Spanish nationalists embraced it as proof of their Egyptian origins. Unfortunately, the sarcophagus turned out to be a fake. The collector Don himself was believed to have orchestrated the entire hoax. Even so, there are real Hercules sarcophagi. One was found at Giano in Rome, now in the British Museum. Another excavated in Rome is on display in Florence, Italy. Both depict the legendary feats of Hercules. Whatever the truth, there's still a chance that Hercules was a real person, though history and myth have yet to settle the question. How did the ancient Egyptians build the pyramids, especially the Pyramid of Djoser? This question still puzzles archaeologists, spawning countless theories. Slave labor, ramps, and pulleys, or even advanced technologies like sonic or hydraulic lifting. The Pyramid of Djoser, standing tall on the Saqqara Plateau, was built around 2680 BCE, the oldest pyramid in Egypt, constructed for Pharaoh Djoser of the Third Dynasty. The 60-meter-high structure is more than just a giant pile of limestone. It's part of a sacred complex surrounded by temples and enigmatic buildings. The hydraulic lifting theory comes from a team of French scientists led by Xavier Landreau. Using satellite imagery and archaeological reports, they identified traces of a complex water management system that may have helped construct the pyramid. They envisioned massive limestone blocks floating on rafts in water-filled pits. As the water rose, the stones could be lifted straight into place, an ancient Egyptian elevator. But where did the water come from? Their research points to an ancient spring called the Abusir Wadi, which once flowed near the site. They also found a massive stone structure predating the pyramid. Once thought to be a cattle pen or fortress, the French team believes it was actually a dam controlling floods and storing water for construction. Nearly 4,700 years ago, the Saqqara Plateau was wetter than today. The Sahara hadn't yet fully dried, and the annual floods from Abusir Wadi could have provided ample water for the lifting system around the pyramid. They also discovered chambers that may have been used to filter water before it entered the shafts. Still, the team admits more evidence is needed. They hope to trace the water's flow through the shafts and determine whether the Abusir Wadi could have supplied enough water to make the system work. Though inconclusive, the theory forces us to reconsider. Could the ancient Egyptians have mastered hydraulic engineering thousands of years before modern technology? If so, they were true geniuses of their age, harnessing the power of water to raise one of the world's greatest wonders. In 2012, in France, a man named Kevin Grennan wandered a vast field with a metal detector, searching for relics from World War II. He had no idea that on that day, he would stumble upon the most important find of his amateur detecting career. Buried about 10 inches beneath the soil, Kevin unearthed a metal bracelet. He brought it home, washed off the mud, and noticed that a name and military serial number were engraved on it. Curious, Kevin reached out to the French authorities for information, but his inquiry was ignored. The bracelet was tucked away in a drawer and forgotten for 8 years. Then, in 2020, during the COVID-19 lockdown, Kevin decided to try once more to find the owner. He contacted a professional genealogist in the United States. Using only photos of the bracelet along with the name and serial number engraved on it, the genealogist quickly uncovered the truth. The bracelet had once belonged to Sergeant Marshal Glenn Phillips of the United States Army from North Carolina. Phillips had passed away in 1986, but with the genealogist's help, Kevin located his only surviving son. The bracelet was sent to America, and the genealogist personally drove 700 miles to hand-deliver it to the now 80-year-old son. That moment defies description. Receiving a memento from a father long gone, emotions came flooding back. Across the vast river of time, a lost piece of the past had returned, a reminder that memory and family love can outlast any distance. Rising from the dusty highlands at over 1,600 feet above sea level, the fortress of Merid stands like a massive sand castle that time forgot. Located in the northwest of Saudi Arabia, in the ancient town of Dumad al-Jandal, this structure is one of the region's most significant historical sites. The fortress is thought to have been built around the 3rd century CE, just before Queen Zenobia of Palmyra led her army in an invasion. Historical records state that Dumad al-Jandal rebelled 1,700 years ago, and Zenobia marched her forces to put down the revolt. Yet her powerful army was unable to breach Merid's stronghold. For Zenobia, this was a bitter defeat. She once controlled much of the Eastern Roman world, capturing Egypt in 270 and Anatolia in 271. But as her empire expanded, rebellions flared up, and at Merid, she could not take the rebels' fortress. Ultimately, Zenobia declared her son emperor in 272, but was soon defeated by Rome. She was captured, brought to Rome as a prisoner, and spent the rest of her life there. During the Islamic era of the 7th century, Merid Fortress remained an important desert outpost, but was gradually abandoned, falling into ruin. Today, it still stands defiant, weathering the ages amidst the endless sea of sand. What if the oldest Viking symbol was nothing more than an elaborate hoax? One of the most astonishing and hotly debated Viking inscriptions might not be writing at all. This is the story of the Runamo runes in Sweden. For centuries, locals believed that no one could decipher them. But the problem was there might not have been anything to decipher in the first place. The jagged markings on the rock might simply be cracks. In the 12th century, Danish writer Saxo Grammaticus wrote that the ancient Runamo inscription had been eroded so badly by time it could no longer be decoded. Oddly, though, he presented a detailed translation in his own book. Saxo claimed that King Valdemar I of Denmark had sent a team of scholars to Runamo to solve the mystery. But they all failed except for Saxo, who just happened to have the translation. According to Saxo, the Runamo inscription was a memorial to King Harald Wartooth. In his account, the text praised Harald as exceptionally handsome and massive, far surpassing anyone else of his time in physical strength. He was so favored by the god Odin that iron could not wound his body. The inscription went on, lauding Harald's talents and achievements, a dazzling epic fit for a Viking king. Modern scholars, however, doubt the runes are real at all. They believe that what generations of researchers tried to decipher was actually nothing more than natural fissures in a dolerite outcrop. It's as if linguists tried to translate cracks in the sidewalk and called it Egyptian hieroglyphs. Though Saxo claimed the script was worn away by the 12th century, in the 17th century, a Danish physician with a remarkable name, Olaus Wormius, said he could read some of it. In the 19th century, Swedish writer Esaias Tegnér even reinterpreted the markings as an unfinished poem about a giant goddess named Tyr from Norse mythology, the wife of the god Freyr. Was this simply a romantic fantasy taken too far? A case of wishful thinking leading to wild conclusions? In the end, what people believed was a sacred message from the past turned out to be nothing more than cracks in stone. If you found these mysterious stories fascinating, leave your thoughts in the comments below And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on our next explorations. See you in the next video.